The Philippines is mourning the death of former President Benigno Aquino. He's died of renal failure at the age of 61. Mr. Aquino was the son of prominent pro-democracy figures Corazon and Nino Aquino. He led the country from 2010 until 2016. Live to Buena Bernal in just a moment, but first a look at Mr. Aquino's political legacy.
Benigno Aquino III ran his presidential campaign on the slogan, Daang Matuwid, the straight path. It was a signal of his intent to end long-term corruption in the Philippines. It was also a continuation of his parents' legacy of fighting graft and authoritarian leadership. His father, former senator and opposition leader Benigno Aquino Jr., was assassinated in 1983 at Manila's International Airport. His mother, Corazon Aquino, led the 1986 People Power Revolt that ousted then-President Ferdinand Marcos. Known popularly as Noy Noy, Benigno Aquino III was an economics graduate and a businessman, but his life was in public service. He served Congress for 3 years and later became a senator. When his mother died in 2009, Mr. Aquino ran for and eventually became president as he rode the wave of overwhelming public support. During his time in office, Mr. Aquino oversaw the Philippines' fastest period of growth since the 1970s. He drew praise for overseeing a landmark peace deal with the largest Muslim rebel group in the southern Philippines. He also took on China, bringing it to an international court to challenge Beijing's claims in the South China Sea. But the straight path wasn't always an easy one. Mr. Aquino was criticized for a botched police operation in 2015 that killed 44 police officers. His administration was also responsible for a mass vaccination program against dengue in 2016 that saw 800,000 school children immunized despite the risk of side effects. Mr. Aquino is survived by his 4 sisters.
Live now to Buena Bernal in Manila. Buena, how are Filipinos paying tribute to the late President Aquino?
There's been an outpouring of words of sympathy for the surviving relatives and words of honor for the late former head of state Benigno Aquino III, fondly called Noy Noy or Pinoy in the country. Flags in Philippine government offices have been lowered at half-mast, and there are also condolence books at all of the Philippines' foreign service posts. Highlights of Mr. Aquino's term include the Philippines filing that case that led to the 2016 Permanent Court of Arbitration's ruling that invalidated China's 9-line claim. And that case was seen by many Filipinos as a case of David going against Goliath in pursuit of territorial sovereignty. The peace process for autonomy of the Muslim-majority Bangsamoro region took major strides during his term, as it was during his term when that final peace agreement for the separatist rebels to lay down their arms was signed. Aquino is also known for his advocacy of the right path, or Daang Matuwid in Filipino, which calls for an end to power hungriness, corruption, even in the small acts like government officials bypassing Manila traffic using emergency sirens, a vernacular term. Wang Wang was made popular during President Aquino's administration. Now, of course, his parents are known as opposition figures during the dictatorship of former President Ferdinand E. Marcos Sr., and that assassination of his father is actually what sparked that movement that restored democracy, ended that 2-decade rule. 14 years of that regime was under martial law, where civil rights were suspended and thousands of dissidents were killed, tortured, and detained. But along with that legacy that comes with his family name is, of course, the burden. Hacienda Luisita, this is a sugar estate north of Manila, owned by the clan in his mother's side. There were calls for genuine land reform and just compensation for the workers there during his term, but he distanced himself from the issue and said he had already divested his shares from that property. But of course, in many ways, these are things that he had no direct control over. In his 2010 inaugural address, he did say that he did not expect to be the Philippine president, but he embraced the responsibility that came along with his last name. He said, quote, "My father fought the dictatorship. My mother cradled this restored democracy. I will devote my life to ensure that this democracy is beneficial to each and every one." He was an advocate of making sure that economic progress trickled down to the masses. He is known for his eloquent Filipino speeches with that oft-repeated phrase that his service is, quote, "para sa mga nasa laylayan," or in English, "for the people in the margins." In a statement, his sister, Pinky Aquino Abellada, said, "Mission accomplished, Noy."
All right, many thanks for that, Buena Bernal in Manila.